They can be premises and they can be conclusions. For example, if I say, if A, then B, and I also assert A is true, I can say, therefore, B. And that's an argument, and we've got a conditional, but this conditional is a what? Premise. Does everybody understand that? I could also do something like this. I could argue, if A, then B, and if B, then C, therefore, if A, then C. Does everybody see how that follows? Right? And there, both of the premises, 1 and 2, are conditionals, and the conclusion is a conditional, right? So conditionals can be parts of arguments, but by themselves, they are not an argument. Does everybody understand that? Okay, now that I just said that, I'm going to take that back. Okay. Sometimes conditionals by themselves can be arguments, given that the context is supplying implicit premises. Does everybody understand that? Oftentimes we'll say something like, if this, then that, and we're assuming that if this is true. Does everybody understand that? And so we're saying that is true as well. Does everybody understand that? Okay. So the context, sometimes you're invited to supply the missing premises and reach the missing implicit conclusion, right? So in advertisement, if we saw something like, it takes 2 hands to handle a Whopper, if it takes 2 hands to handle a Whopper, then a Whopper is a bigger burger. Okay, and that's all they say. Well, what you're supposed to supply is, if it's bigger, it's better. If it's better, I want one. And so it's part of an implicit argument. Does everybody understand that? Advertisement is always full of implicit premises and whatnot, partly because if they said the premises explicitly, you would say, well, that's no good reason to do it. Does everybody understand that? For example, you'll see something like this: no other drug relieves pain better. What do you take that to mean?
This is the best.
That's not what they said. They said nothing is better, which could mean countless others are just as good. Does everybody understand? So they said something that was true, but you supply an implicit premise that's not true to reach a conclusion that's dubious. Does everybody understand that, right? And so there's all sorts of tricks that advertisement uses, okay? So you gotta look out for stuff like that. Okay, I'm on page 7, standard form. You may have noticed that in all the genuine arguments that have been encountered so far, that it was premises, conclusion. Premises, evidence came first, conclusion came last. Everybody understand that? And we're going to call that standard form, evidence, conclusion. It's not always the case that the conclusion comes last, okay? In that passage 2 that we read earlier, the conclusion came last, therefore the abortion of an innocent human fetus is morally impermissible, okay? So it came in standard form. But you could have the same argument arranged differently. And so I'm reading 2.1 on page 7. The abortion of an innocent human fetus is morally impermissible. This is true because killing an innocent person is morally impermissible. Moreover, a human fetus is a person from the point of conception, and abortions kill innocent fetuses. There, the conclusion came first, right? And there were no indicator words, which makes it harder to detect. Okay, all right. So we now have an example of conclusions coming last and first, and you know what? They can come in the middle too. So I'm reading 3.1. A woman has an absolute right to do whatever she pleases with her body. Therefore, a woman having an abortion is morally permissible, since having an abortion is just a case of a woman exercising her right to do whatever she pleases with her body, and exercising one's rights is morally permissible. Okay, there the conclusion comes in the middle. Notice that indicator word, therefore, right? So there's where the conclusion starts. But now here's something. Up until now, a sentence has been, in all of our examples, either a premise or a conclusion, okay? But this is not the case here. Read that sentence. Therefore, a woman having an abortion is morally permissible. That's a conclusion. And then we have comma, since. And since is a premise indicator, right? Since having an abortion is just a case of a woman exercising her right to do whatever she pleases, okay? So that sentence, if you were gonna put this argument in standard form, you'd have to break it apart, because the first part of it was a conclusion, so you put that last, and then you take that other part and use it as a premise. Does everybody understand that? So sometimes you have to break sentences apart to separate premise from conclusion. Everybody got that? Okay, all right. So at this point, I'm looking at page 8, you should be able to do homework 1.1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, okay? And by the way, our syllabus says that I'm posting a quiz today, which was due Sunday night, but we're not all the way through the chapter, so quiz number 1 is postponed. We're already behind, all right? We will catch up. It's just because you guys didn't, I blame you, you all didn't have your books the first day. Okay, so let's go to the homework's found in the back of the book. Let's go back there, and we're gonna start going through some of the homework, right? And so I'm assigning homework to you guys, and you're supposed to do it. Do you ever have to turn it in? Do I collect it from you? No, okay? The way I check to see if you're actually doing it is by what? Giving you a quiz and seeing how you do there. Because collecting all the homework is just, that's huge. Does everybody understand that? And then you wouldn't have it with you when you're trying to do a test. Does everybody understand that? So the quizzes are my check that you're doing the homework, okay? So I'm in the back of the book, homework chapter 1. There's always kind of a page or two that summarizes the chapter, so you have it right there at hand as you're about to do the homework, okay? So homework 1.1, okay, determine if the following passages are arguments or non-arguments. If it's an argument, tell me what the conclusion is. If it's a non-argument, tell me what kind of non-argument it is. And remember, it's just a conditional statement, it's an explanation, or it's a report of an argument, or no particular claim is supported by evidence. And that was that very first one that I read, you know, like abortion should be outlawed, capital punishment should be swift, and whatever else it was. It was just 3 different claims without evidence. That would be an example of number 4. Does everybody understand that? Okay, so let's do some of these together, and that's what we're gonna do. So I'm giving you all this homework to look over, and so on Tuesday, I'm gonna say, hey, are there any questions on the homework? And we're gonna go over the homework. And then once we've done that, we push on with the rest of the chapter. Does everybody understand that? Okay. So make sure you do it so that you can check, okay? So I'm reading number 1. The Yanomami of South America believed it was morally right to ingest the cremains of the deceased. Orthodox Judaism forbids cremation. Roman Catholicism permits cremation. What's your name over here?
Kai.
Kai. What do you think about number 1, argument or not?
I would say there's an argument.
What's the conclusion? I don't know all I see is 3 different claims about religion's relations to the dead and cremation, right? So this would be a non-argument, it would be that type 4. No particular claim is supported by evidence. Everybody got that? Okay. And if you have questions, make sure you stop and ask, okay? So I'm doing odd, so I'm skipping ahead. 3, people have the moral beliefs that they do because they were conditioned to believe what they believed by their parents. Therefore, there are no objective moral truths, since people would have different moral beliefs than they do if they had been raised differently. Moreover, they would have believed these beliefs, these alternative morals, just as adamantly as they believe what they currently do. What's your name? Simeon? What do you think about number 3, argument or not?
Argument.
And what's the conclusion? You don't have your book with?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Therefore, there are no objective moral truths. That's the conclusion. And notice I stopped right there. The sentence continues, right? But it's comma since. And so that comma since, the since part is another premise. Does everybody understand that? Okay. 5. My preacher says that whatever God says is morally right simply by virtue of the fact that God said so. And my preacher reports to me that God has proclaimed that homosexuality is not morally right. Hence, my preacher concludes that homosexuality is not morally right. Who's in back corner there? Okay. What do you think about number 5? Argument or not? Why do you shake your head no?
Because I think it's a report of an argument.
Yeah, so there's an argument in there, but they're not making the argument, they are what? Reporting it, right? Okay. So 7, there are those who claim whatever God says is morally right simply by virtue of the fact that God said so. But they also claim that God would never command a parent to kill an innocent child because killing an innocent child is wrong. However, they can't have it both ways, so either whatever God says is morally right simply by virtue of the fact that God said so, or there are objective rights and wrongs independent of God's commands. What's your name up front here? Anna. What do you say about number 7? Argument or not?
I honestly don't know. I'm going to say a not argument. It says there are those because it's just reporting.
No, I'm not going to say that the report. That's just saying that such and such is believed.
No, I'm not.
Why?
Because they didn't give a conclusion.
What?
Well, they didn't explain the conclusion.
Well, wait. Does everybody see that there's an indicator word so? Okay. So I say it is an argument, and the conclusion is either whatever God says is morally right simply by virtue of the fact that God said so, or there are objective rights or wrongs independent of God's commands.
That's the conclusion.
That's the conclusion. All right, so now you guys are like, what the hell? They're not saying anything definitive.
Well, he just said it's because he says so.
No, okay, so first of all, so some people want to say, it's not an argument because the conclusion seems waffly, because it says either. Does everybody understand that? So let's make sure that we can understand that that can be a conclusion. So I'm going to give you an example. So the fact that you're tripping up on these is perfectly fine. They're in there for you to trip up for us to clarify. Does everybody understand that? So let's suppose that either you're in some kind of tournament. What kind of tournament do you want to make it? It was basketball last time. So you're in some basketball playoffs, and you're going to get first place or second place, okay? And if you get first place, then you get $100, okay? If you get second place, then you get $50. What conclusion can we draw? You're going to get either or $50, right? So you're either gonna get $100, either 100 or 50. And that is a certainty. Does everybody understand that? So even though it says either or, I have provided evidence that that either statement gotta be true. Everybody understand that? What time's class over? Oh, those people getting out early, getting gypped out of their education. Why is it that education is the only thing that people pay for that they want to get gypped out of? Like if I said, hey, you want to go early, you'd all say, yeah, and leave, right? But gosh darn, if you went to McDonald's and you ordered the supersized fries and they gave you a small, you'd be all up in their face. I want my fries! Right? So if I say you want to leave early, you should say, no on my education. Oh, okay, so that was, what number were we on? 7. Okay, so 7 was an argument. The sentence that begins with so is the conclusion. So I'm on to 9. Just because people behave differently doesn't mean they hold different moral values. You must ask why they behave as they do before you can be certain of a difference of moral opinion. For example, when Inuits first encountered European explorers, it seemed to the Europeans as if Inuits didn't value human life as sacred, given their practice of infanticide. Does everybody know what infanticide is? What is infanticide? Killing of newborns, yeah. On closer inspection, however, it was determined that they practiced infanticide only when necessary to ensure the survival of the community. Hence, the Inuits valued human life as sacred, but their circumstances dictated a different means of upholding the same moral value. What's your name right here in the pink?
Tori.
Tori. Argument or not? You see any indicator words?
Hence.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say it's an argument, and hence is the conclusion indicator. So the sentence that begins with a hence is the conclusion. Okay. 11. If one or both of your biological parents are alcoholics, then you are at a much greater risk for alcoholism. Israel. Is it Israel?
Yeah, Israel. I'll say some argument.
Anyone disagree? Yeah, what? I would say it's not an argument, because if you think about it, it's just a conditional. It's just an if-then statement without any supporting evidence. So the trick is, conditional statements are things that are argumentative, but if they don't have evidence that supports the conditional claim is true, not an argument. Okay? 13. Professor Fingerette has argued that alcoholism is not a disease. Fingerette also argues that medical insurance should only pay for the prevention and treatment of real diseases. Hence, he concludes insurance shouldn't pay for rehab programs for alcoholics. What's the name?
Ava.
Ava.
I think it is an argument if you're not saying like someone's not talking what Mr. Whatever his name is was saying. I say it is an argument because you have 2 premises and hints.
Is the person that's saying all this saying it, or are
So they
they?
were reporting.
They're reporting it. I think that's right. Is alcoholism a disease?
Yeah.
1 vote for yes. Yeah, 2 votes for yes. Okay, disorder. I hate it. Alcoholism is not a disease. Why? Why is that so fun?
I apologize. I never.
Maybe I should try luck as a comedian. No, alcoholism is not a disease, and this is an important thing for us to think and argue about, okay? Why do I say it's not a disease? Is there a test that you can do for alcoholism?
Depends.
What?
It depends. I mean, they can look at
Is-
brain chemistry and we can go into like CAT scan to see how it affects the brain.
But that's not showing it's a disease, it's just showing the effects of you taking alcohol.
Bingo, bango. Let me put it this way, is alcoholism anything different than a certain behavior? It's not. So alcoholism is just the name for a certain kind of behavior. Can an alcoholic stop being an alcoholic by an act of will? Okay. If I'm a diabetic, can I just say, no more diabetes for me?
No.
Does everybody see the difference? Okay, why is it important to say that alcoholism is not a disease, according to Herb Fingeret? Because when you call it a disease, you're taking the responsibility for their activities away from them. I have a disease, I'm an alcoholic, I can't help but drink. Does everybody understand that? Whereas if you say, no, we call you an alcoholic because you choose to do this bad stuff over and over again. Stop it. And if they stop it, it's over. Does everybody understand that? So if it's a disease, if you want to call it a disease, we need to make a distinction between the kinds of diseases that could be what? Terminated by an act of will and those that cannot. Does everybody understand that? And the ones that can't be terminated by an act of will, I would say are real diseases, and the other kind are what? Many diseases, or yes.
I'm only saying this because my dad was diabetic at one point. What was? Does that apply to, and I totally agree, alcoholism is not a disease. However, type 2 diabetes, when it's done by your lifestyle choices and you're not born with it, how does that apply?
You became a diabetic by an act of will, and if you're not too far into it, sometimes you can reverse it by an act of will, right? Yes?
Because I like to always challenge my mind. Could we argue that, for example, a company adds a certain additive to alcohol that then results in taking the will from?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay.
That would be different, so and that's what they do,
Mhm.
right?
So basically, it can become a form of, well, I don't have a choice anymore because the company added something that now has me addicted to alcohol.
Well, okay, you are addicted, and we don't even have to have the additive. It might be the case through a choice of my will, or an act of will, I stopped drinking. I'm gonna have some problems. I'm gonna go through withdrawals and stuff like that. But that still doesn't mean it was a disease in the same way that other diseases are diseases, right? I can't just will myself to get rid of sickle cell anemia. Does everybody understand that? Okay. Where were we? We were somewhere.
We're on 13.
13
15.
or 15. I have faith. I have faith that I have a soul. I have faith that Jesus died on the cross so that my sins could be forgiven.
Okay, like, statement.
It's just statements, it's a non-argument, so it'd be type 4, no particular claim, supported by evidence. Okay, 1.2. So remember we said, hey, sometimes conditionals could have implicit premises, right? So I'm giving you conditionals, and you're just going to complete the argument as it were, right? So the example is, if you don't eat your meat, then you can't have any pudding, right? And we can change that into, if you don't eat your meat, then you can't have any pudding. You didn't eat your meat, therefore what? Can't have any pudding. That's easy enough. Does anyone know where if you don't eat your meat, then you can't have any pudding come from? Thank you. Oh, Jesus. The whole other section went, huh? so they have to Google it tonight. Okay, so this should be easy. If you pay your taxes late, then you'll receive a nasty penalty. You paid your taxes late, therefore, a nasty penalty. Okay, so you can do that in half a second, right? And on 1.3, remember that I said that the indicator words can signal the location of the premise or the location of the conclusions or conclusion? Well, 1.3, you got the blank, blank, consequently blank. Consequently is an indicator word. You tell me what would be in those blanks, either premises or what? The conclusion, right? So blank, blank, consequently. If you look up consequently in the indicator word list, you'll see it's a conclusion indicator. So the conclusion would be to the right of consequently, right? And those other blanks you just fill in with P's. Does everybody understand that? Okay, it is about time to go. One thing I have to say is we are technically behind. So there's supposed to be a quiz posted tonight, which is due Sunday, but that's not gonna happen until I've gone through all the material with you. So quiz number 1 is delayed. Does everybody understand that? So work on all those homework sections that were indicated on that page or whatever. We'll go over that first thing on Tuesday, and then I'll push on and finish out the chapter. All right?